So, I just gotta get this fucking video off my chest. This is gonna be a spoiler-filled video. As of the recording, Endgame came out a few days ago. I am going through the 5 stages of fucking grief for a fucking movie character. I can't believe I'm even saying that. I mean, I keep reading articles that's like, okay. It's okay to feel an emotional sadness when a character you loved dies. But it just feels absurd because they're not real. They didn't exist. This was a character played by someone. But I want to give you like a concept of some, like, I've obviously seen tons of films. I'm used to seeing characters die in films. But when I really started to like think about it, right? About a character I was this emotionally attached to. And I thought of this. There are only 2 other characters, I think. Well, there are a few other characters, but it also depends on the interpretation of that character, right? And those characters are Luke Skywalker and Woody from the Toy Story series. Now with those characters, right, with Luke Skywalker, when he died, I had the comforting cushion of lore to back it up, right? I knew someone like Luke Skywalker would come back as a Force ghost, basically coming back from the dead. Even though their physical presence may be gone, their consciousness would still be there to somewhat guide the new protagonist of the sequel series. With a character like Sheriff Woody, I never even fathomed the idea of him dying in that series or in any of the movies. It came close, and he is brushed with death a couple of times, but he's never actually faced death. Even a character whose death I can think of as on a similar level, Spock, in Wrath of Khan. I knew because, it was spoiled for me because I have the fucking box set that he would come back in the Search for Spock. I also saw Search for Spock before I saw Wrath of Khan, but now that I've given you this context, the fact that this particular interpretation of Natasha Romanoff, you see what I'm fucking, babe? I'ma cry. I'ma keep it real. I'ma cry. Because I am legitimately this emotional about this character. We will not see her post Endgame. That this death telling you, man, 5 stages of fucking grief. What is it? Anger, denying, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Right? I don't know what fucking stage I'm in with this shit. But she is dead. This will be a permanent death within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I've read articles, where the interpretation is this is a shitty way to kill her off. And I would be lying if there wasn't a part of me that somewhat agreed with it. There is a fanboy side of me, or a side of me that wants to see the ruthlessness of the character on full display. Even more so than we've seen her with her ruthlessness being portrayed in the previous Marvel movies. I've wanted to see that side of her, because I know within the comic books, that side is always there. And while in the comics, she almost has like this Zen type of approach to the assassin and the Avenger, as if there is a balance between those two sides, that she can flick a switch and one side can be active and the other side can shut off. That they're almost like in the yin and yang type of harmony. But the tragedy of the movie version is that she never got to find that balance. And I've heard these critiques of her character where they're saying, oh, she's a monster because she can't have children, or it's a family aspect. These elements are there, right? But I think there's a component that goes deeper than these surface levels critique of, oh, Natasha can't be a mommy. It's because deep down, she can't forgive herself. She knows exactly what she fucking did. She knows what she used to be. She knows how ruthless, how brutal, how probably even evil she was. And how you would think that in the events of the Winter Soldier, she would just be like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to expose S.H.I.E.L.D. for what it is, Hydra, and I'm going to show my true colors and let the people decide what they want to do with me. She even has that triumphant, fuck you, come at me line where she says, if you want to arrest me, arrest me. But it's almost as if that's a mask. And it's a mask that starts to get peeled back once she has to vividly remember the Red Room program in Age of Ultron. And I can't believe this, because this was foreshadowed in Age of Ultron. Now, I thought, oh, it's a red herring, they're not going to really kill her off. But they fucking did. And it breaks my heart as a fan of this character, especially Scarlett Johansson's interpretation. I stand by this, that no other actress could come in and play Natasha Romanoff the way Scarlett Johansson did. Yes, Scarlett Johansson is a beautiful woman. She's incredibly sexy. I would be lying if there was not a somewhat primal sexual attraction to her that's been there since I was young. But once I really looked into this character, there is this deep, complex character. And as I mentioned with the yin and yang of the assassin, that she can't fight that, or she can't find that balance. When she is on Vormir with Clint, and they're fighting, for God's sakes, to see who's gonna die, and Clint is holding on to her, and she says to him, let go. It's okay. The real tragedy of that scene is, not only is she making this sacrifice for the greater good, as she has consistently done throughout this series, it's like you would think all someone would need to do for her is to just sit her down, put a hand on her shoulder, and go Robin Williams and Good Will Hunting on her, like it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. But she would, even if something like that happened, she would still be in denial of it. Because she would still have this underlying self-hatred. Even when she's fucking with Loki, that self-hatred is there. It's always been there. And it climaxes when push comes to shove and it's her or Hawkeye. It's like she can't forgive herself. She can't see what she is. She is a hero. She is an Avenger. She has proven herself time and time again to be a noble person. Well, pragmatic, yes, but noble, strong, compassionate. Even though all of these qualities are there and are right in front of your face as an audience member, what I got out of that fucking scene was, it was never enough. There was never a concept of an enough. The only time she probably really wanted to find something was to go away with Bruce Banner because she was afraid. And it was dealing with that fear again. It was dealing with all this traumatic shit where she was realizing, I'm no different than I used to be. There was no redemption for me. Even now, even in that moment, it's like the only way she can defeat this monster within her is to kill herself. And that is what is so heartbreaking for me as a fan. Because as a fan, I love the layers of her. I love the shades of gray. I love that spy aspect. And I love the introspectiveness of her. While she is a woman of few words, it's because of Johansson's brilliant physicality. Her brilliance in being able to compel all of these massive emotions through her eyes, through subtleties in her facial expressions that show you as a viewer there is more to her than what she is letting on. She does have a Spock-like death to me. She almost has this, the Avengers are my family. I would rather die, sacrifice myself, sacrifice this monster, end this mental torture, than to risk anyone she loves suffering. And it's so heartbreaking because she is so entrenched in that moment. I mean, that scene with the fucking sword. And the way it's ended together. And that last image you see of her, where you see her blood on the fucking ground. And it just hits you like a fucking ton of steel beams. And as a fan of this fucking character, it fucking hurt. That death hit me harder than Tony Stark's death. Fuck me, I'm crying right now. I knew that was going to happen. I'm going to tell you why. I think it's because I expected Tony to die. But with Black Widow, you know, because Scarlett Johansson's contract wasn't up, I was like, oh, that's a safe haven thing. Black Widow's going to live through this. Black Widow's going to maybe even lead the new Avengers. But then it's like you think about her more and more and more, and you think about what drives her. And it is that tragedy of her mindset in that moment is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And she is willing to do that. Her love for the people around her outweighed her own basic survival instinct that is probably one of the most potent types of survival instincts due to her former life as an assassin. It's as if she's willing to throw it all away for the greater good. Even with this ramble, this venting, I don't know how I feel still. I'm going to cut to some audio I recorded where I took Captain Kirk's monologue from the Wrath of Khan and I simply replaced he with her. And you're going to understand why I decided to do that. So just to let you guys know, this is going to be for the spoiler part of the video, if I haven't edited it in yet. But I kept thinking about, fucking hell, I still can't accept it, Natasha's death. Like I said, I'm in the middle of the 5 stages of grief for a fictional character. What the fuck is wrong with me? But I guess it's because this character was such a important part of my teenage years, my later teenage years, and probably throughout my early 20s, which I'm currently in. So, I mean, obviously I thought she was sexy, but beyond the sexiness, there was a very deep, complicated, nuanced character that we got to explore through 8 films. Hopefully 9 with their solo movie. But the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, it kind of gave me like a Kirk and Spock vibe in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And to show you that, I'm going to do a fucking eulogy for this character. So, fuck it. If you think this is too nerdy or too much, it is, I'll admit it. It's kind of weird, but I don't think I've ever experienced a fictional character death like this. And that's very surreal for me to say. But when I think about some of my favorite characters, there always seems to be a way to bring them back. And at least in this moment in time, it doesn't seem like she's coming back. So, fucking may as well give her a eulogy. We are assembled here today to pay final respect to our honored dead. And yet, it should be noted that in the midst of our sorrow, this death takes place in the shadow of new life, the sunrise of a new world. A world that our beloved comrade gave her life to protect and nourish. She did not feel the sacrifice a vain or empty one, and we will not debate her profound wisdom at these proceedings. Of my friend, I can only say this. Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, hers was the most human. Alright, so we will see how well that turned out, because I am tearing the fuck up while reading that. So yeah, if you're a fellow Black Widow fan, welcome to the eulogy. Yeah. One day I hope to meet Scarlett Johansson and say to her face, thank you for giving me such a brilliant performance, such a great female superheroine, and such a complicated, tragic figure that will be on par with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, and Christopher Reeve's Superman, to name a few.